Hello, our brainstorm bunnies. Welcome back to Have a Nice Life. My name's Hadassah Damien. I am a money coach and business strategist, and I am here with my dear friend,
Pippi Kessler. I am a career coach.
Fantastic. This is a career change survival guide, podcast, and workbook that Pippi and I have put together because we just saw so much need for people to think about how to come up with new ways to roll the dice and recast what we are doing with our lives. We are on episode 10 of the podcast and chapter 5 of the workbook. If you like to listen, welcome. You're here. Please feel free to go on back to our previous episodes where we talk about everything from understanding the current conditions, making the decision to take the risk to think about what you want and need, pulling together your criteria for a good life, doing research, understanding what's possible. And in the episode right before this, we talked about brainstorming. And if you're someone who likes to follow along visually or read things, feel free to pop over to one of our websites or to the link in our podcast and grab the workbook. But we went deep on brainstorming in our last session. So hopefully you got a chance to do some noodling and some thinking about what your criteria, what types of jobs or shape of work might actually be right for you. And you might have come up with a laundry list of many little things in mind. And you thought to yourself, what do I do with all this? Fear not, friends. In this episode, we are going to go into how you can whittle down some decision-making tools for you for narrowing down this list, not to make a final decision, but to start to come up with things that you're going to go test out or learn more about. And Pippi is going to give us an exercise to do just that. So I hand it to you, Pips.
In the brainstorming episode, one of the things that I was pushing you about is don't judge your brainstorm, because when you're brainstorming, you're trying to come up with bad ideas. You're not trying to come up with bad ideas, but you're trying to come up with a lot of ideas, and that might include a mix of good and bad ideas. And if you put any kind of judgment or filter on it, it makes it way harder to brainstorm. The reason, though, that it's safe to brainstorm like that is because of what we're about to do now, which is to whittle it down to your favorite ideas. And I'm going to teach you a couple ways to do that. You're going to do more than one round of decision making if you're making a career change. This round that we're talking about is about making your short list of favorite ideas that you're going to look into more. And later, after you've looked into that list, you'll probably make another kind of decision, which is about making a bigger from now choice about what you're going to want to do. So for example, if you had a list of 100 jobs, maybe you'd narrow it down to 3, like dentist, dog catcher, and door impersonator. I'm sorry, those are the worst examples that anyone. You know what I'm talking about, though. Maybe you'd have 3 ideas, and then you'd research those 3 more, and then you would pick which one you wanted to go into later on. One of the first things that you can try when you're looking at your big brainstorm list, so you have this big list in front of you, it has a mix of good and bad ideas. Sometimes when people look at that list, they have this immediate moment of knowing what they want to do. Just looking at the list, they're like, yep, that's it. I got it. If you want to try to see if you can do that, here's how you can do it. Take all of your options and put them in one place. So if you did them on sticky notes, put all the sticky notes out where you can see them. If you made a chart, put them all out. If you have a list, take all your lists out and put them in front of you. And then ask yourself a question like, self, what is your favorite option at this point? And see if you get an answer. And sometimes people describe that they get an answer right away. You could also try saying it softer, so you could ask yourself, self, what's your best guess? What do you think you want to try next? And again, if you have an answer, then you have an answer, and okay, you're done. Go have a snack. But if you don't get an answer when you say that to yourself, that's fine. Don't give up. It's fine. Just do some more decision-making exercises that give you a little more support. One of the exercises you can try is using a scorecard. So if you feel really stumped, you can try using numbers to give each of your options a score. And I'm going to teach you a scoring method that I learned from Michael Melcher. Remember the name Michael Melcher because in the networking section I'm going to explain how I met Michael. But in short, Michael is a coach and is also just a hilarious person. And he's talked a lot about career development. He has a podcast about career development also and has taught me a lot. So this is a set of questions that I learned from him. So for each of the jobs that you're considering, give them a score from 1 to 5 on the following categories. The first category is how interested are you in it? So 1 is I'm not interested at all. 5 is I'm very interested. The word interested in this case means how into it are you? How much do you love it? If difficulty were no object, how psyched would you be if you could really do this kind of job? So for example, if one of the jobs that you were considering was being a saxophone player, you might give it a 5 if you really love music and you feel happiest when you're playing saxophone in your little hat and little sunglasses. That's a 5 for you. The second question to ask yourself is, how easy would it be to succeed in this? And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to give that aspect about how easy it would be to succeed a score from 1 to 5. And 1 means it would be very difficult to succeed. 5 is very easy to succeed. So becoming a professional saxophone player is very difficult, like super, super difficult for a lot of reasons. You have to practice all the time for years and years. You have to play lots and lots of gigs, and you have to do really well at them over and over again and form a lot of strong relationships. And you have to be able to deal with a lot of uncertainty about money. There's a very small number of people on the planet that fully make their living playing saxophone in a little hat. But there's 3 things that are important to remember when you're scoring that element. The first is that even if something is difficult to do, you are still fully allowed to go for it anyway. It's just that it's really good to be real with yourself about how hard is this to do? And if you were saying saxophone player, it's good to be real about what's hard about that career. The second thing is that when you're scoring this, you are scoring this for yourself and not for somebody else. So you're scoring how easy it would be for you to succeed in this, not an anonymous person. So if you were like a sax savant and you went to Juilliard at 12 years old, and you also have been gigging since you were 3 years old, and you're from a famous saxophone dynasty family, and you grew up in the basement of a jazz club, and you were born on the night of this big jazz festival where you were welcomed into the world with saxophones, and everyone was a professional saxophone player, it's easier for you than somebody who's less skilled and less connected. It's actually more realistic to be confident if you're a jazz dynasty baby sax genius. So give yourself a higher score if that's you. And also, how was that childhood for you? What was that bedtime like? Probably some pros and cons for that little kid. Anyway, the word success in this instance means success as you define it. So if success for you is that you play saxophone professionally and consistently, but it's not your primary income, that's different than if you were saying that success is defined by you as winning a Grammy. So before you assign the score, ask yourself, how are you defining success? And the second is, what does this mean in terms of the probability for me as a specific person? The third score that you're going to give is how much do you know about it? So a score of 1 means I know nothing about this, and 5 means I know a lot about this. Part of why this score is important is that it's fleshing out how much you know about how much you'd like it and how easy it would be to succeed, and how informed you are about the field in general. So this score is helping say how clear you are on the 2 previous scores, because it's about what do you know about this. What you do next is you just add up the 3 scores. And if you love it and you think it would be easy to succeed in the way that you define success and you also know a lot about it, that's a pretty good guess. That probably is good to try. However, sometimes it's also fine or even enjoyable to do something that we love that we don't know that much about or that's hard. So it doesn't mean that it rules it out. This is just a way that you can try thinking about it. So the question that you ask yourself to end the exercise is, does seeing the score give me any new insights about what I want to do?
Something that I really enjoy about an exercise like this is sometimes you notice that if something got a low score and you're sad about it, that's important information because that might indicate that you're actually really interested in that thing or there's something pulling you to it. So, just highlighting what Pippi's saying here, we can get information from our high scores, but we can also get information from our reactions to our low scores if we're really disappointed in something. So, doing a criteria like this and doing a scorecard like this, there's so many ways you can get these insights.
Okay, so that is decision tool number 1, which is using numbers to make a scorecard around these different aspects. Decision tool number 2 is to try a criteria scorecard that uses your criteria as the card. And when I say scorecard, it could be that you're using a spreadsheet or a list or a drawing or however your brain likes to do it. Here's how you make a criteria scorecard based on your own criteria. Go get your list of criteria and line them up where you can see them, and then get out your brainstorm list and look individually at each of the ideas on your brainstorm list. And then give each of the items in your brainstorm a score from 1 to 5 on how well it meets each individual criterion. So the example that we were talking about above, or the answer that we were talking about earlier, there were 6 criteria, which means that if you were using them as a scorecard, each brainstorming option would get 6 scores. So in this sample, this imaginary person, their criteria is 1, living close to friends. 2, lots of free time. 3, working on topics that intellectually challenge and engage me. 4, making $94,000 to $104,000 a year. 5, I get to move my body a lot during the day. 6, I alternate between big bursts of work and then long periods of rest. So that's 6 scores. Let's say one of your brainstorm ideas was to become a physical therapist. You'd go down the list, you give it 6 scores. Living close to friends, you're like, okay, that's a 5. I can do that job anywhere. 5. Lots of free time. That's a 3. I'd have to work a lot, but not like too much. Okay, next one. Working on topics that intellectually challenge me. 5. I think physical therapist is really interesting. Okay, making $94,000 to $104,000 a year. That's a 5 because I looked it up on ONET and that's the salary range that I saw. All right, next one. I get to move my body a lot during the day. Yeah, 5 because it's a physical therapist and they get to move around. And the last one, I alternate between big bursts of work and then long periods of rest, which is, let's say that's your favorite way to work. And that one gets a 2 because physical therapist is more of a regular schedule, but you could take vacation. So that would be the way you'd get at that. And then you add up those 6 scores. So in this physical therapist example, that person would give it a total score of 25. And when you've done that for all of your options, you compare the total scores. And if it helps you, you can also then put them in visual order of what got the highest score. So you can say, okay, I had physical therapist, and that scored higher than flight attendant. So I'm going to put in a list with physical therapist above. Then you're going to ask yourself another reflection question. So look at those scores in ranked order and say, does seeing the numbers give me any new information about which option I like best? And as Hadassah was saying, the scores are not destiny and they're not bullying you. They're just giving you a chance to ask yourself again, does this help you know anything? And it's okay if it does, it's okay if it doesn't. You're just trying to use it to help your brain see how it relates to things that you care about. I also recommend that when you're doing this, you try what I call the pickle jar test. That's not a scientific term. This is a made-up term that I use privately by myself in my house. And here's when I use it. When I go to open a pickle jar, which I have to do a lot because we have a high pickle consumption rate in our house, I usually cannot do it. So I yell a lot and complain and I squinch up my face and I try to grip it different ways, but I have these weak little arms and I just can't get the lid off. But when this happens, I'm never worried when that's happening because I know I'm going to go to the silverware drawer. I'm going to get a butter knife. I'm going to whack the shit out of the jar of the lid. And then I'm going to try again. So I'm like, oh, the lid won't open. But I'm not like, oh no, it's over. No pickles ever. I'm like, this is fine. I'm going to get my knife. I'm going to whack it. And then I'm going to try it again. And if the lid still doesn't come off, I whack it some more. And I try it again. And I always eventually get to eat pickles. So if you ask yourself, okay, self, looking at this brainstorm list, what's your favorite initial idea about what job you want to do? And you don't get an answer. Use one of the scoring tools to whack that lid and then try it again. Ask again. Okay, now do you know? So try an exercise and then ask yourself again, what's your favorite idea now? And if you still don't get an answer, whack at it more. And you might have to whack at the lid more by doing more research. So you might have to go back a little bit in the steps. You might have to talk to more people. You might have to go on a walk. You might have to do something totally unrelated, cook a complicated recipe and just mull the question over while you're chopping. So keep alternating between asking yourself, what's your favorite? And then doing different things that help give you more textured information to that answer. And remember, this is not the perfect final answer. This is a first draft of narrowing down so you can get an imperfect, I need to know more answer. So get out the pickle jar, try to open it. And if you can't open it, whack the lid and then try again. And if you still can't open it, whack on the lid some more.
And one little secret hint for the next step in our process here is if you find yourself having really big questions, save them. Write a list. If you keep saying, I don't know if I can make this short list because I don't know if physical therapist actually makes $100,000 a year, or I don't know what a day in the life of physical therapy really is, or I can't make this short list because I don't know how to decide between sandcastle engagement artist, physical therapist, and writing teacher who does poetry on the side. I don't know. That's actually okay. Those questions, those things that are coming up, the things that scare you, the things that you don't know, are what you're going to go test and learn about in your next step. So if you have big questions coming up, you're in the right place. That's exactly where you need to be. There's absolutely going to be things that you don't know yet at this point. And the hint here is that I want you to just take note of them so you can come back to them, because the questions that haunt you are the ones that we're going to go test and learn more about in our next step. So for now, if you're seeing these questions, embrace them. Say, thank you, question. You really matter to me. I'm not going to forget you. Take a note. And in the meantime, once you get a short list, and look, your short list can be job titles. It could also be activities that you're interested in doing, right? Like my short list, when I got to it, included things like facilitator and growing small businesses and something with money. It doesn't actually have to be really perfect. Your short list might include a set of things that you're starting to hone in on that, again, might benefit from a little more research. What are the things that let you facilitate, work with money, and help businesses? But you might actually have to just sit with that as what you came out with on your brainstorm as a shorter list from a bunch of longer stuff that you're then going to go learn more about. So don't be mean to yourself, but come up with a shorter list of concepts. They can be fuzzy or they can be more dialed in. It's going to be a little different for all of you, to be honest. But either way, you've come up with something. It's 60 to 80% right. It's imperfect. It might be inside out. It might be in a couple pieces. It's probably giving you questions, but you came up with something. So this last moment here in our brainstorming mini decision is to actually acknowledge that you have done work. You've used criteria. You've thought about research, you've confronted fears, you've brainstormed and come up with some positive shaping ideas of what you want to do. That's huge. That is so hard. So often we get really stuck in what we don't want to do. And you just did a bunch of work to figure out what are some of the pieces that you do want, what they might look like, and how they might manifest in the world. So I want to celebrate you getting this far in your imagination and over the many hurdles that are certainly in your way, even to getting messy ass concepts. It's not easy to imagine the new, but it's so critical and it's imperative for change. So the last step here is to take that output, that short list, those concepts, those ideas, that criteria table, your sketch, whatever it is, or if everything's in voice note or on your computer, make like a little something visual that you can see, right? A photo on the home screen of your phone, whatever it is, put it somewhere that you can see it. And I want you to savor and be with any of the new questions, the new feelings, and the new ideas that it's giving you. Give yourself a moment to savor and celebrate before you move on to do what's next. And what's next is what we'll talk about in the next episode. Pippi, you want to give them a tiny teaser?
In the next episode, we're going to talk about what you do with your short list. And what you do with the short list is you start trying stuff out and doing small things that are not too risky, that just help you learn a little bit more about, is this a good idea? Would I like this? So we're going to get more into detail about how to do that. And until then, if you want to see visuals of some of these exercises that we're talking about, because some of these are, for some people's brains, easier to picture if you can see a picture of it, you can get the workbook on either of our websites, pippikessler.org, ridefreefearlessmoney.com. And we'll see you next time when we talk about trying stuff out.
Thanks, friends.